Hi, this is Mark Meyer from Martech Hero. In this quick video, I'm going to show you Epiphany. So Epiphany is just a Google Sheet add-on that allows you to connect APIs to Google Sheets to pull the API data directly into the sheet in a very easy to read format. So if you're currently manually exporting data from a software platform and then copying and pasting that data into Google Sheets, then you'll find that this Epiphany add-on is a much better solution to handling that. Before we jump into Epiphany, I'm going to back up a little bit and I'm going to show you why we might want to have a request run in this Google Sheet add-on instead of something like Postman. So for this example, I'm going to use Eloqua, which is a marketing automation software. I'm going to use their APIs just because it gives us a good example of things we could pull. So on this particular Postman screen, I have this get API request that's just going to return all the forms that are on this instance of Eloqua. So if I just simply hit send, and as you can see down here in the body, it returns in JSON all of the results. And you can just see there's a lot of forms in here. So if someone wanted just to have a list, like someone said, give me a list of all the forms from this API, we'd have to go through and look at the name and say this is called test form, and then scroll down, and then this one's called archive do not use, and so on and so forth. But if we wanted those all in a more easy to read format, this is one great use case for Epiphany. So now I'm going to jump over to Google Sheets to show you how this Epiphany would work. Okay, we're in a Google Sheet here. I already installed the extension, the Epiphany extension. But if you're new to this and you download it, it's pretty easy to install. You install it like any other extension. So I'm in a Google Sheet. I'm going to go up here first, and I'm just going to call this Google Sheet something. We'll just say Martech Hero Demo. And then under extensions, like I said, once you install the Epiphany add-on, you'll see this Epiphany API connector. I'm going to enable that. And you see it brought up this little menu item box over here on the right side of our screen. So you basically fill this out the same way you would fill out how you would do this in Postman, right? So the first thing it's asking for, the first thing it's saying is what's the method? You can say get, post, put, delete, or patch. We're just going to use the get method in this case. We're going to use the same example that I just showed you in Postman. So I'm going to copy that URL over, and there's the endpoint. And now for headers, we're going to add the needed headers for this. Now, depending on what your API is, what you're doing, each API doc should list what's needed for the headers. But if you need more information on what this is, I do have a Postman video out here on this Martech Hero channel that explains this in more detail. But we're going to populate these headers here the same way that they are populated with our Postman account. So first I'm going to say accept. That's just going to be */*. Add a new header. User agent. Since this is a Google Sheet, we're just going to say it's coming from Google. Content type. In this one, we're going to use application JSON. So application/JSON. And then finally, it's going to be our authorization. Paste this in. So that's the only headers that we need in this particular case. We're going to get to this pagination a little later, but for now, I'm just going to simply hit run. It comes up with this dialog box. It just says the target sheet will be overwritten with the results of this API request, which means this sheet over here is going to be overwritten with whatever it pulls. So we're okay with that. So we're going to hit run. And as you can see, it returned the results. But the nice thing about how this is being returned with Epiphany versus Postman, I'm going to jump back to Postman just for an example here. So in Postman, I broke it out in JSON format as shown here. But if you wanted to, in our case, just get a list of all the names, it's kind of hard to decipher. Yes, you could pull this out and put it into a different process to have it outputted a little differently, but a little bit more time consuming. But in Epiphany, you'll see that there's a column name just says elements name, and that clearly just lists out all of those elements, everything we wanted to see, which is a much easier format to look at. And as you can see, if we scroll over, it has all of the different fields from each of those entries. So that's basically how easy it is. And a nice feature is, let's say we always want to run this, or you have a reoccurring request you get. You can come over here on the right side back in this window, and I could say save. We can give this particular request a name. So we'll just call it Martech Hero API call. And that's save that request. So the next time we open this spreadsheet, we could just easily pull up this request that we saved. And you could have multiple requests saved to the same Google Sheet, which is very easy just to switch between them. So one other thing to mention here, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that it stopped at, it returned 1,000 rows of data. So that's where we can use this pagination feature. So to show how that works, I'm going to jump back over to Postman. And if I scroll all the way down to the bottom of this, you'll see that Postman also returned the first 1,000. And this is page 1, and the total number is 4,829. So how do we tell Epiphany that we want to pull all the pages? So it would be 5 pages total. So to do that, first we want to make note that the page, in this case, it's kind of easy and self-explanatory. It's called page, P-A-G-E. So I'm going to jump back over to Epiphany. And in this particular case, we're doing page numbers. And then it says, what's the page parameter name? Well, like I just showed you, it's called page. And then where do we want to start from? Well, we want to start from page 1 in our case. And we want to keep running it until the page count equals, we'll say 5, because there's about 4,800 rows. So if we pull the first 5 pages of 1,000, it will pull them all. So it's going to look like that. So now if I hit run, once again, it's going to say it's going to erase this data and overwrite it. So that's okay. So I'm going to hit run. And there's all the results. So now if we scroll down, we'll get past 1,000 here. And you'll see right here, this is where the first time I ran it ended, but now it's going to keep pulling each page. So if I scroll all the way over to the right here, you'll see they'll have that last line that says this is page 1. There's 1,000 rows out of a total of 4,829. So this, we just keep going down, and as you can see, it just pulls all of them in until eventually it pulls everything in there, which is very simple, very easy to use. I don't know how many times this has come into handy when you just need to pull a list of all some kind of element name. It's just super easy to use. So that's one use case for Epiphany. Another thing you could do is I'll show you how to use the post request. So I just cleared all that data, and now I'm going to change this request to post. And then I got to change my endpoint a little bit. In this example, it's going to be super easy. I'm just going to post data to a form. And more specifically, I'm just going to post an email address to a form. So like I said, we're doing this within a system called Eloqua. So the form's in Eloqua. So this is the API endpoint to post data to a form. In this case, we're just posting it to form ID 5527. And then it asks for the body and the content type. We're going to keep that as application JSON. So we're going to put JSON body in here. And depending on what the API endpoint you're using, their API documentation will have examples of exactly what the body would look like. So in this particular case, I'm just pasting in this sample body. So this is basically just passing this form data It's passing these field values, the field value ID, it's an email address, and the value is mark@martechhero.com. So if I run this, it's going to work fine. It's going to run. And there it just ran. And as you can see, this is just the success response it received. It says it successfully added this value to that form. But one nice thing you could do with Apipheny, I'm going to clear this out again. Add some more rows here. Let's say I have a column in my spreadsheet called email, and I have a value of an email address here. So it looks like that. So the value is in the email address value is in A2. So over here, back on my JSON, instead of hard coding in my email address right there, what you could do with Apipheny is between the quotes, you put curly bracket, curly bracket, curly bracket. So 3 curly brackets. And then what sheet you're on. So sheet 1, which is on the bottom left of the screen there. And then an exclamation point, just to tell it that's the sheet we're on. And then what cell we want it to pull the data from. So in this case, it's right here. It's A2. So A2. And then curly bracket, curly bracket, curly bracket to close it. So it looks like that. So this is going to actually do the exact same thing as the prior one, the prior call we did, but it's going to pull the email address from this field. Another thing I'll show you while we're here is on the settings, you can change this to append mode. And what this does is, if you recall, normally when I hit run, it overwrites everything that's on the sheet. If I change this to append mode, it's not going to overwrite my email address right here. It's going to put the results underneath. So it just keeps this intact. So let's try this out. We're just going to hit run. Say run. And there it is. It added that email address again. So if we wanted to change this email address to something else, you could run it again. And then instead of pulling that mark at Martech Hero, it's going to pull test. And as you can see, it added it right here. And once again, this keeps adding the results underneath each other because, like we said in other settings, we're on append mode. If we took that off, it would just overwrite the whole thing with the new data. So that's just a really quick view of how Apipheny works and what it can do. It's super helpful, and I actually find myself using it quite a bit just to return a nice list of things that are in the API, just a nice view of how you could pull API data. Now, normally Apipheny would cost, I think it's $12 a month. They do have a free 30-day trial, but it's $12 a month. But there is a special going on over at AppSumo. Let me bounce over there. That they have a deal, and I'll put the link to this in the description and the comments. They have a lifetime deal, a one-time purchase of $99. And for that, you could use it however many times you want. One user can use it for how many ever times you want. Whether you're pulling 100 rows of data or a million rows of data, right? It just doesn't matter. You have access to all of it. So that's Apipheny in a nutshell. Like I said, it's a quick demo. But if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.